Muskies are known as the fish of 10,000 casts. And although that's not true, if you don't have the right equipment, it really can be. So I'm going to go through a few of the key things you need to catch your first muskie or to catch them consistently, but I'm going to warn you, muskie fishing can be addictive. You have to start out by having the right equipment. And typically, what you want is a 9-foot heavy action muskie rod. Doesn't have to be super expensive. Believe me, when you get hooked, you'll be buying the more expensive ones. But start out with a 9-foot heavy action muskie rod, and you need that to cast the big lures, to be able to handle all the big lures, to be able to rip and jerk and pull the lures, and ultimately figure eight at boat side and land fish. It's all part of the fact because these are bigger fish and all the lures are much larger. The reel is a larger reel, typically larger than your bait casting reel for bass. It's a next step up, and you need something with a 5.1 to 6.1 gear ratio, somewhere in there. You don't need a super fast gear ratio because, again, you're pulling in hard pulling lures, and that's perfect. Fishing line, it's an 80-pound test braid with about a 17-pound test monofilament diameter. And the reason for that is you need the shock strength for casting those large lures. And finally, you need a leader. And I use a 130-pound fluorocarbon leader, and that handles and prevents the muskies from biting off. Here's a handful of lures you need to catch muskies. And believe me, there's lots of lures, but these are all just tools, and these are the 5 or 6 tools you need to catch them. Number 1 is a topwater. Anytime the fish are in shallow cover, coming back in the evening, a topwater is a great choice. An inline spinner or a bucktail is the mainstay of muskie fishing. Around any type of cover, you have to have some of those. Both minnow baits, what we call minnow baits, and we call jerk baits, these lures are very erratic. You can jerk them and pull them and move them around. They dive, they rise, some go side to side. They're very erratic when fish are tight to cover and you're not really responding to the faster moving baits. These erratic lures really work. Of course, like any kind of fishing, you also need a deep running crankbait. Deeper rocks, deeper break lines, deeper weed cover. Something to get down in the cover and pry those muskies out of there is key. And last, but certainly not least, are the large soft plastics. These lures, almost a pound. They're gigantic lures, these big soft plastic, a big jig. You can rip and pull these. You can work them near the surface. You can work them down 8-10 feet deep. You can fish them in open water. Extremely versatile. Now, when you look at all these lures, there's lots of colors. Generally in muskie fishing, anything's good as long as it's black. But also you need something perch color, maybe a walleye pattern, a sucker pattern, anything that's natural, or maybe a few baits in the bright chartreuse colors, all that would work. You really only need a handful of lures and a handful of colors to get started, but I can tell you, on any given day, I have 350 lures in my boat. And last but not least, you need the proper equipment to safely land and release a muskie. And it all starts with this great big muskie net. We actually catch the fish in the net, leave the net over the side of the boat, use it like an in the water live well to make sure the fish can recover. We unhook them there, and then when we're done, when we go to unhook the fish, we use long nose pliers, a good pair of long nose pliers, to make sure you can reach down, keep your hands safe from those super sharp lures to let go of those fish. Then it's just a matter of hanging on to them and gently letting them go. Muskie fishing is an awesome sport, and it is not the fish at 10,000 casts. If you've got the right equipment, the lures, and you can safely release these fish, you can catch them. You will be on the way to becoming an addictive muskie hunter, and sooner or later, everything else is just bait.